headlines on Breakingviews: how UK Chancellor George Osborne could raid the rich to boost the weak economy in next week's interim budget, and why the Murdochs will be breathing a sigh of relief after the UK report into the phone hacking scandal. With me now to discuss this is Reuters Breakingviews' Chris Hughes. Chris, George Osborne as Robin Hood, it's not going to go down too well in his party, is it?
Well, he's in a bit of a bind. He might actually not have much choice but to pursue a policy of transferring cash from the rich to the poor. He actually has an opportunity to raid some pretty generous tax breaks that the better off enjoy in UK society, and handing money to the less well off, who would probably spend it immediately, could potentially drive growth. Given the bind that the Chancellor's in, where he's essentially got to tighten fiscally if he's going to meet his own targets, and he's struggling to get the UK economy back on its feet. A sort of Robin Hood budget actually looks pretty sensible.
Well, it would seem fair and sensible, but again, it's not the widely held view of the Conservative Party, is it?
Well, no. Like in the last budget, he was more kind of Sheriff of Nottingham. I mean, he gave he cut the top rate of tax. It was kind of widely derided for that, and it wasn't clear actually what economic benefit really came from that. So I think it's going to be a political tough sell, but the reality is he doesn't actually have many levers, and if you put money into the pockets of the less well off, it is spent, and it could drive growth.
But this fiscal bind that he's in, I mean, that's a bit of a red herring, isn't it? I mean, the UK could borrow more to spend more. Any comparisons with Greece is, that's fanciful, that's nonsensical. And the bond vigilantes, they aren't going to hammer the UK market, are they? I mean, again, he does have something there.
Well, it's true. The UK does enjoy very, very low rates of borrowing in the markets, but that's partly because the government has signalled that it wants to actually kind of get pretty medieval on cutting the debt and the deficit. And actually, if you stand back and look at it, they haven't actually done that much. I mean, they there's been a lot of talk. There are some big plans. But in actual fact, they could probably go further.
Okay, on to the Leveson inquiry. Obviously, huge news here in the UK. And you think at Breakingviews that the report was actually rather kind to Murdoch and News Corp?
Well, if you rewind back to the summer when Rupert Murdoch was sort of on the stand. I mean, this wasn't really an adversarial inquiry, but at times it felt like it. It was looking pretty tough. There was this rather dark allegation out there that there was a kind of pact between the sort of all-powerful Murdoch empire and the British government to wave through News Corporation's bid for the rest of B Sky B that didn't already own. It was looking pretty tricky for the Murdochs. I mean, the potential outcomes here could have been that Brian Leveson, the judge who's overseeing this, he could have said that he didn't find them credible, or he may have said that this idea that there had been some kind of collusion between government and the corporation, maybe had possibly had something to it. Actually, in the end, what he said was that the government's handling of the bid for B Sky B was commendable. He used the word commendable, but for some an inappropriate kind of closeness between a special advisor and a lobbyist for News Corp. But broadly, it was sort of exoneration for that whole process. And then there's a lot of airtime in the Leveson report, which is, I say, absolutely colossal, but a lot of
2,000 pages.
Yeah,
just
but there's a big chunk which just basically sort of details all of the kind of clean-up action that News Corp has done, and it looks like Leveson has been sort of a bit won over by the sort of remedial action that News Corp's taken. Compared to what UK lawmakers were saying about the Murdochs and the Murdoch empire, it's hard to really sort of pull out anything overtly damaging.
Not as bad as it might have been then. And
also, the outcome is, there is this idea that there should be self-regulation with statutory underpinning, which, you could blame the Murdochs for because it was their newspapers that started all this, but actually the government is already rejecting it, so it's not even as if that would stick on them either.
Although this one has more to run, I'm pretty sure.
Early days yet. Yeah.
OK, Chris, thank you. That's all for now. My thanks there to Chris Hughes. For more agenda-setting financial insight, watch our US Breaking Views show every day at 12:30 Eastern, 17:30 GMT. I'm Jamie McGeever. This is Reuters.